Greetings, family. This is Cassandra-Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. I am going to do a short live. Yes, it's impromptu. Yes, I did not previously schedule it. Yes, I am still going to do a temple service in the morning, but um, I wanted to read. Because I want to be done with this book once and for all. It's taken us way too long to get through it. So every little spare opportunity I get, I'm going to continue reading this book so we can move on to the next book. The book that I am talking about is Beyond God the Father and Toward a Philosophy of Women's Liberation by Mary Daly. We've been on this book way too long. I have about an hour, maybe a little less, to read. So I'm going to read from this book and I am going to get right to it. Before I do that, I am going to encourage you to make contributions. Hey, Vioni. I'm good. So I'm going to encourage you to make donations to the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. You can do that through Zelle and you would use the email EvoEme@gmail.com. That's EvoEmeTemp temp@gmail.com. That's EvoEmeTemp@gmail.com. You can do it through Zelle using that. Cassandra-Floyd if you want to make a contribution via Venmo, and $ Daughter of the Fates if you want to send a Cashapp. Also, get your readings. No, it was yesterday, and then I have a concert coming up. Tajali asked if my recital was today. No, it was yesterday, and then I have a class concert on the 18th. So what was I gonna say? Get your readings. This month is radical. I'll post on this YouTube later on tonight too. But I posted, there's a gang of heavy movements. Today was a pretty significant day. The rest of the month is pretty significant. The last full moon of the year is coming up very soon. Neptune stations direct today. Like, it's just big shit all the way across the board, all the way through to the new year. So get your readings. I'm going to be posting, hopefully tonight. I have a client soon. Hopefully tonight, I was exhausted last night. Hopefully tonight, I'll be going ahead and posting on YouTube the discounts that I'm going to have available for the readings, for the wellness consultations. And I'm also probably going to do a more like, offer a more like in-depth reading for those that are interested on how to plan for the next year. So I will have that information up. I'm gonna try to make the commitment to do that tonight. Don't hold me to it. I got a lot to do. I have a lot of jewelry orders to fill. The jewelry on my Etsy page is still 25% off. So through to January 2nd, anything and everything that's on my Etsy store is 25% off. So just go into Etsy.com. My Etsy store is Daughter of the Fates. Okay. So it's a lot going on, but I wanted to say that really quick before we get into this. So for those of you who've been following along all this time while we're reading this book, we are on page 98 today. The last chapter that we read was gangster. It like the book really could have stopped right there. It was really deep. I have a folder in my YouTube account that is entitled Beyond God the Father. So if you've missed any of the readings or are wondering what I am talking about, just look for that folder or that, that little folder, and you will see all the reads that I've done up until this point. Chapter 4, Transvaluation of Values, the End of Phallic Morality. This is a quote. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down, all alone, these together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And they is asking to do it. The men better let them. Sojourner Truth in 1851. Quote, see that no matter what you have done, I am still here, and it has made me dangerous and wise. And brother, you cannot whore, perfume, or suppress me anymore. I have my own business in this skin and on this planet. Gail Murray, end quote. Gail Murray, 1970. The transvaluation of this is a quote, the transvaluation of values can only be accomplished when there is a tension of new needs and a new set of needy people who feel old values as painful, although they are not conscious of what is wrong, end quote. That was Friedrich Nietzsche. In order to understand the potential impact of radical feminism upon the phallocentric morality, it is important to see the problem of structures of alienation on a wide social scale. Some contemporary social critics, of course, have seen a need for deep psychic change. Herbert Marcuse, for example, encourages the building of a society in which a new type of human being emerges. He recognizes that unless this transformation takes place, the transition from capitalism to socialism would only mean replacing one form of domination by another. The human being of the future envisaged by Marcuse would have a new sensibility and sensitivity and would be psychologically incapable of tolerating an ugly, noisy, and polluted universe. Norman O. Brown recognizes that the problem of human oppression is deeply linked with the prevalence of phallic personality. Quotes King James, who in 1603 said, quote, I am the husband and the whole island is my lawful wife, end quote. The statement calls to mind the traditional insistence of ecclesiastics that the church is the bride of Christ, For Theodore Roszak, such imagery poses a dilemma. Quote, does social privilege generate the erotic symbolism? Oh shit. Does the erotic symbolism generate social privilege? Politically, it poses the question of how our liberation is to be achieved. How shall we rid ourselves of the king or his dominating surrogates? Greetings, everybody. Y'all must be vibing on me hard because this was crazy impromptu. I'm trying to tell you, I just got done with a client. I got another client after this. I was like, let me read for about 45 minutes or so before I go to this next client. The point is not missed by any of these authors that the desired psychic change is related to overcoming sexual alienation. What is lacking is adequate recognition of the key role of women's becoming in the process of human liberation. When this crucial role is understood and experienced, it can be seen that there are ways of grappling with the problems of psychic social change that are concrete and real. As distinct from the speculations of Marcuse, Brown, and other social philosophers, the analysis developing out of feminism has a compelling power deriving from its concreteness and specificity. It speaks precisely out of and to the experience of the sexually oppressed and has an awakening force that is emotional, intellectual, and moral. It changes the fabric of lives, affecting also the consciousness of the men related to the women whose consciousness is changing. Damn. The dynamics of the psychosocial revolution of feminism involve a twofold rejection of patriarchal society's assumptions about women's roles. Man, this book could have been written yesterday, okay? First, there is a basic rejection of what Alice Rossi calls the pluralist model of sex roles, which involves a rigid, equal but different ideology and socialization of the sexes. The assumption of such pluralism is that there is and should be complementarity, based not upon individual differences, but upon sex stereotyping. Feminists universally see through the fallaciousness and oppressiveness of the complementarity theme, at least to some degree. However, there are levels and levels of perceptions of this, and permitting oneself to have deep insight is threatening to the self. God damn. Thus, it is possible to stop at a rather surface level of denying the stereotypic pluralism by reducing the problem to one of the equal pay for equal Whoa. Yo. God damn. Y'all got y'all wigs pinned in tight. She aiming for wigs tonight. She aiming for wigs. Thus, it is possible to stop at a rather surface level of denying the stereotypic pluralism by reducing the problem to one of equal pay for equal work, or in the past, acquisition of the right to vote, or passage of equal rights amendments. Woo! Well, in the present wave of feminism, a second and deeper rejection of patriarchal assumptions is widespread. This is rejection of what Rossi calls the assimilation model. Radical feminists know that 50-50 equality within patriarchal space is an absurd notion, neither possible nor desirable. Woo, woo. Yo. God damn. Yo. The values perpetuated within such space are seen as questionable. When the myth of the eternal feminine is seen through, then the brutalization implied in the eternal masculine also becomes evident. Just God damn, y'all. Whoa. This motherfucker was on one. You hear me? She was on one. She said, look, the values perpetuated within such space are seen as questionable. When the myth of the eternal feminine is seen through, then the brutalization implied in the eternal masculine also becomes evident. Just as unveiling the eternal feminine logically entails revealing the true face of the eternal masculine. The whole process, if carried through to its logical conclusion, involves refusal of uncritical assimilation into structures that depend upon this polarization. The notion of a 50% female army, for example, is alien to the basic insights of radical feminism. Come on in the room. Intrinsic to the recreative potential of the women's movement, then, is a new naming of values as seen of values as these have been incarnated in society's laws, customs, and arrangements. This means that there will be a renaming of morality, which has been false because phallocentric, denying half the species the possibility not only of naming, but even of hearing our own experience with our own ears. Woo, woo. You. Hypocrisy of the traditional morality. Much of traditional morality in our society appears to be the product of reactions on the part of men, perhaps guilty reactions, to the behavioral excesses of the stereotypic male. There has been a theoretical one-sided emphasis upon charity, meekness, obedience, humility, self-abnegation, sacrifice, and service. Part of the problem with this moral ideology is that it became accepted not by men, but by women, who hardly have been helped by an ethic which reinforces the abject female situation. Of course, oppressed males are forced to act out these qualities in the presence of their superiors. However, in the presence of females of the oppressed racial or economic class, the mask is dropped. Basically, then, the traditional morality of our culture has been feminine in the sense of the hypocritically idealizing some, in the sense of hypocritically idealizing some of the qualities imposed upon the oppressed. Oh, yo, I don't want to go off. Let me finish reading, but damn. Ooh, I just want to say something. Ooh, Damn. I have to say something because it's timely. Hold on. But I'm going to try to keep it short. Understanding what I just said in this section called Hypocrisy of the Traditional Morality, I want y'all to go back to the live that I did from my car 2 days ago. I think, what did I call it? I don't remember, but I did it 2 days ago. So 2 videos ago, I did a live from my car about this Brian Thompson thing that's hot on the lips of everybody. You feel me? And I talked about this article where the woman who wrote the article interviewed the man who is over the Department of Security and Threats at the University of Chicago. Death is the Equalizer. Thank you, baby. That was the name of the video. Is Death is the Great Equalizer, right? So she interviews this dude who is, a part of the department that is supposed to assess security threats in the United States, like sociologically, like what is he looking at any given time that can point to assessing threats in US culture. And so his position was everything that has happened subsequent to the death of Brian Thompson is indicative of a couple of things in his mind. One of those things being this concerning general attitude of American citizens to see violence as a justifiable tool to resolve what otherwise should be civil situations resolved in nonviolent ways, right? This was his assessment, that Americans are concerningly, accepting that violence, right, is now an acceptable tool to address issues that otherwise would be civil issues addressed in a civil way in nonviolent ways. You feel me? And so while the news and everybody is talking about Brian Thompson and everybody's like, at least the news, the state, you understand, it's like, oh my God, who could do something this brazen and broad daylight? And oh my God, who could kill an innocent victim in this way, in such a public way? And oh my God, what about his wife and his children? And right? And so what is concerning to this dude who works in the University of Chicago's Department of Security and Threats, you feel me, is like concerned because everybody who is regular is reading the story of this man's life and was like, karma is real shit. That shit is real. You understand? Y'all can play if you want to. Karma catches up. I'm horribly paraphrasing, but everybody is like, sound like justice to me. Don't sound like murder. Sound like justice to me. You feel me? And so, when I did that live two videos ago, the point that I drew out that I had not yet heard drawn out a lot, that has changed in the last 48 hours. But at that time, this was not what had been drawn out that much, was the fact that violence is defined by those who have perfected the art of violence and at the same time manipulated the general population through their absolute guarantee of absolution. And what is happening is Brian Thompson, even in death, is not being afforded the absolution that those in positions of power are accustomed to receiving from the oppressed. Y'all dig? It is because they set the moral code. They set the moral standard. They say what's right and wrong. So that's why I was saying white collar crime don't see the kind of time that blue collar crime sees, even as, say, you got a blue collar person who kills another person. Okay, yeah, justice or whatever. But you got a white collar crime person who kills an estimated 44,789 people a year. And that is not seen as shocking, as worthy of severe justice, as the blue collar crime person who, in a fit of rage or whatever, kills another person. You see what I'm saying? It is because the bourgeoisie, the state, the government, and in their collusion with these religious institutions, create a system of morality that always benefits them, that always absolves them, typically at the expense of everybody else. That's what she's talking about right here. That's what she's talking about right here. That's why I said it's timely, and there was no way I could move on without drawing that out. So the hypocrisy of traditional morality. All right. And what she is saying is these things that are considered indicative of phallic morality, right, are these things that have a heavy emphasis on what? Charity, meekness, obedience, humility, self-abnegation, sacrifice, and service. That's why y'all heartstrings be chronically plucked at when y'all see a billionaire and, oh my God, he just donated $1 million to his favorite charity. Y'all heartstrings stay plucked. But the problem is, and I will forever say it, there would be no need for charity. There would be no need for nonprofit organizations. There would be no need for philanthropy if billionaires didn't exist. I'm just saying. I'm trying to give y'all a word. Okay? So, now I'll move on from there. You feel me? Anyway. Oh, and the last thing I will say is those things that are, quote, theoretical, stereotypical phallic types of morality, right, are charity, meekness, obedience, humility, self-abnegation, sacrifice, and service. He said the problem is that this only applies to women. This only applies to women. What did he say? She's saying the part of the problem with this moral ideology is that it became accepted not by men, but by women who hardly have been helped by an ethic which reinforces the abject female situation. And she said, of course, there are oppressed males who are forced to act out these qualities in the presence of in the presence of their superiors. However, in the presence of females of the oppressed racial or economic class, the mask is dropped. Basically, then the traditional morality of our culture has been feminine in the sense of the hypocritically idealizing some of the qualities imposed upon the oppressed. These things are imposed upon the oppressed. A basic irony in the phenomena of this feminine ethic of selflessness and sacrificial love is the fact that the qualities that are really lived out and valued by those in dominant roles and esteemed by those in subservient roles are not overtly held up as values, but rather are acted out under pretense of doing something else. Okay, they the philanthropist out in the world. They the philanthropist out in public. They are the masterful giver of charity out in the world, while behind to save face. You feel me? While they doing crooked shit behind closed doors. What do we call this? I forget the psychologist's names who's real big, the Indian woman right now that everybody's talking to because she talks about the different types of narcissism. This is noble narcissism. This is noble narcissism. Your good deeds become the shield that you use, the mask that you wear that guarantees that nobody will look deeper or below the surface to see what kind of crooked motherfucker you are. You see what I'm saying? So even when some young female comes out and says, this person did this to me, this person did this to me, that noble narcissist knows that no one will believe her because, oh my God, look at all of the wonderful things that he has done in the world. He can't possibly be the tyrant that this girl is talking about. She's the liar. And the noble narcissist knows that. That's why he has no problem doing, quote, performative good deeds out in the world, because for every performative good deed he does, it is an addition to his cloak. It is an addition to his costume. It is an addition to his mask and his shield. Thank you, Dr. Ramani. It adds a level of protection while he continues to do dirt behind closed doors. So it's not, quote, good deeds. It is strategic protection for himself. That's what it is. Feel me? Okay, let's go. So under the pretense of doing something else. Ambitious, let's see what time it is. Okay. Ambitious prelates who have achieved ecclesiastical power have been praised not for their ambition, but for their humility. Avaricious and ruthless politicians often speak unctuously of sacrifice, service, and dedication. Not uncommonly, such pronouncements are sincere, for self-defeat is encouraged by a common assumption that the simple fact of having an office proves that the incumbent truly merits it. The Judeo-Christian ethic has tended to support rather than challenge this self-legitimating facticity by its obsession with obedience and respect for authority. Since the general effect of Christian morality has been to distort the real motivations and values operative in society, it hinders confrontation. Child, listen, it hinders confrontation with the problems of unjust acquisition and use of power and the destructive effects of social conditioning. Man, look. Since it fails to develop an understanding and respect for the aggressive and creative virtues, it offers no alternative to the hypocrisy condoning situation fostered by its one-sided and unrealistic ethic. A mark of the duplicity of this situation is the fact that women who, according to the fables of our culture, the favorable ones as opposed to those that stress the evil side of the stereotype, should be living embodiments of the virtues it extols, are rarely admitted to positions of leadership. It is perhaps partial insight. Into the inconsistency of the situation that has prompted Christian theologians to justify it not only by the myth of feminine evil, but also by finding a kind of tragic flaw in women's natural equipment. Commonly, this flaw has been seen as an inherent feebleness of the reasoning power, linked, of course, to emotional instability. Yo. Dang. What does that mean? Crazy bitch syndrome. Y'all heard 1,000 times. A woman can't be president of the United States. She's too emotional. She'll have us in World War III in no time with her. Just let her period come on and she'll be pressing the button. Isn't that what y'all heard y'all whole life? Women can't lead. We're too emotional. You're too fickle. You feel me? Anyway, typically, Thomas Aquinas argued that women should be subject to men because, quote, in man, the discretion of reason predominates. What do these dudes always say? See, we're more rational. You feel me? That's why we have to lead. That's why the man's natural position is as the head of the house. Because see, we more reasonable. We reasoning. We more logical. You feel me? Meanwhile, you will cut a bitch who step on your shoes in the club. We understand? More reasonable. Meanwhile, anyway, feel me? This denial of rationality in women by Christian theologians has been a basic tactic for confining them to the condition of moral imbecility. Holy shit. Damn. Child, she said moral imbecility. Inconsistently, women have been blamed for most of the evil in the world, while at the same time, full capacity of our moral responsibility has been denied to females. Y'all know this story too. Even today, everything wrong in the world is somehow a woman's fault. You know what I'm saying? What is it? The reason that the black community is messed up, you feel me, is because we got 2 generations of young people who was raised in single family households, and everybody know can't no woman raise no man. That the reason that we out here fucked up, you feel me, is because all these women chose what they be saying, chose food stamps over having a real man in the house. You understand? The reason that that these kids out here doing this and that and such, you feel me, is because mama wouldn't let their men come to the house, wouldn't let the daddies see their kids. The reason why there's so many black gay men and black gay people is because they was raised by a woman and didn't have no real masculine role model in the house. You understand? The reason there's a hole in the ozone layer is because bitches use hairspray. I mean, you name it. You know what I'm saying? You name it, it's our fault. Meanwhile, in the United States, 93% of elected officials are white and male. 93%. You feel me? Anyway, she said that. Right? Feminism versus the feminine ethic. While Christian morality has tended to deny responsibility and self-actualization to women by definition, it has also stifled honesty in men. I have pointed out that the pseudo-feminine ethic, which I will also call the passive ethic, conceals the motivations and values that are actually operative in society. While it is true that there has been an emphasis upon some of the aspects of the masculine stereotype, for example, control of the masculine stereotype, for example, control of emotions by reason and the practice of courage in defense of the prevailing political structure or of a powerful ideology, the courage of soldiers and martyrs, these have been tailored to serve mechanisms that oppress rather than to liberate the self. Ho, ho, ho. Oh my God. My God. The passive ethic, then, rather stressing the so-called feminine qualities or the so-called masculine qualities, does not challenge exploitativeness, but instead supports it. This kind of morality lowers consciousness so that sin is basically equated with an offense against those in power, and the structures of oppression are not recognized as evil. Woo! Listen, I keep telling y'all this motherfucker was a witch, okay? This girl was a soothsaying ass, oracle ass, sybil ass, seeing into the future ass, creating the web ass witch. You hear me? This shit has happened too many times while we've been reading this woman's book. While we've been reading these 2 books, Pure Lust and Beyond God the Father, and some shit will happen in a week, and the same thing that happened in that week, we land on the page, on the section that she is talking in 1973 about the same shit. Damn near verbatim. Did y'all hear what I just said? I just told y'all that's the reason that there's so much conflict and that the narrative in the news is having to change radically around this millionaire, Thompson, is because the state didn't expect that so many people was gonna be like, good for him, feel like justice was served. No, we ain't gonna rat out the good looking white boy. I'm sitting here watching all these videos today. All these women was like, oh, why he fine? Why he good looking? Oh no, we ain't turning him in. He was doing the Lord's work. Child, listen, okay? How's she talking about this shit in 1973? And this week, that this shit is on everybody's lips, this the thing we read. The same thing verbatim. She said that both men and women are victimized by this concept of the feminine ethic, this passivity imposed on everyone. But the problem with males is that this passivity causes them to not challenge, to not speak up, to not oppose the oppressor. What it does do, the same passivity will cause them to get the training, to get the learning, to get access to the weapons and all of that shit, to uphold and strengthen these instruments of oppressive institutions. You feel me? Not to use that training to liberate themselves. Here, you can go and learn how to use AK-47, assault rifle. You can learn how to drop bombs on motherfuckers and fly drones and drop bombs on motherfuckers. You get all this high tech, you understand, training. But because you are so indoctrinated to the passivity of the feminine ethic that you never challenge images of authority, you feel me? And will instead, those same instruments that you have been handed by the state to use, you have been given all this training by the state. You understand? You done gone out into the world and killed innocent people with this training by the state. But because you are so conditioned, you are so convicted, you understand? Because she said, what? You never recognize these structures of oppression as evil. You understand? It never occurs to you with all this training, with all this training to liberate your fucking self and your people. Never occurs to you. Never occurs to you. You feel me? And the state knows that. They know they've done their job well. They know they have done their job well because they will give you these weapons. They will give you this training. They will give you this high-tech information. They'll give you the AI tech and all of that shit because they know, because they have done a job well done, and you will never stray. You will never stray. So you have everything in your possession: information, skills, training, and weapons to liberate yourself. But because your brain is fucked up, it never occurs to you to liberate yourself with this training. That's what she said in 1973. That's what the fuck she said. And she said the reason that happens, right? And she calls it the feminine ethic because the feminine ethic, based in a patriarchal society, is this whole the effeminization of these phallic moralities. These moralities are based on the weakness that, quote, the inherent weakness they see in females. So it applies to both men and women when you experience the feminine ethic that makes you passive, that makes you complicit, that makes you never challenge, that makes you, no matter how much education you got, no matter how many degrees you got, you still are not adept enough to see that you have all the skills you need to liberate yourself and your folk. You understand? She said the reason that can happen, the passive ethic then, whether stressing the so-called feminine qualities or the so-called masculine qualities. She said the feminine ethic expresses in both ways, in the feminine qualities and the masculine qualities. That's what she's talking about. You understand? She's saying the passive ethic then, whether stressing the so-called feminine qualities or the so-called masculine qualities, does not challenge exploitativeness, but instead supports it, holds it up. You feel me? This kind of morality lowers your consciousness so that, quote, sin is basically equated with an offense against those in power. And the structures of oppression are not ever recognized as evil. That's why the state is disseminating a certain kind of narrative about the motherfucker who made $10 million a year murdering 44,000 people a year by denying them access to the money that they spent to secure their life and their safety and their sanity through this health insurance that they were certain was going to be there as a security net for them when they needed it. So he was robbing them and murdering them. That's what he was doing. He was robbing them and murdering them. You feel me? And he is the proverbial good guy. Why? Because those in power and the structures of oppression are never recognized as evil. Meanwhile, those who fight against those in power, those who speak out against those in power, those who stand up against those in power, those who just backtalk a bitch in a position of power, now every action of the oppressed is reduced to sin, a sinful act. She said that shit. She said that. She said that shit. She said that shit. You feel me? Why y'all act confused when the police kill somebody and get away with it? Because those in power and the structures of oppression are never recognized as evil. They are granted absolution. Not only are they granted absolution, in a lot of these cases where the police done kill somebody, guess what happens a year or two later after the flames settle? They get a promotion. You feel me? Feminism has a unique potential for providing the insight needed to undercut the prevailing moral ideology. I want to say something about this too quickly. I want to say something about this, and it never occurred to me to say this in all the time that I've been reading this book, but I should stop and say it now, bookmark it or whatever for yourself. This book was written in 1973. For those of you who joined late, the book is Beyond God the Father and Toward the Philosophy of Women's Liberation. Okay? This book was written in 1973. It's gangster. There are flaws, but overall, it's gangster. The reason I'm pausing right here is because this book was written by a radical feminist during the second wave of feminism in the United States. I am not a feminist. I have never identified as a feminist. Never. I hear people, Black women and women of color, talking about, womanism. Okay, cool, if that's your bag. For me, she is writing this book from the perspective of a radical feminist during the second wave of feminism. Okay, so always keep that in mind, because feminism, she's saying here, feminism has a unique potential for providing insight needed to undercut the prevailing moral ideology. I don't think that it is feminism. And I can say that relatively confidently because so many women are holding so tight on this label or identification as a feminist, as the way forward for humanity. But I think that we too must evolve past this label of feminism because it has been wrought with so many contradictions and complications that it's no longer deniable. I remember this happening when I was in the Black Power movement, how there was this huge, when I was young in the party, there was this huge contest that the party was staging everywhere we went. When we would go to Europe, we went to Europe every year for like 6 or 7 years to do these conferences to build the organization. And, you're talking to Black people from all over the known world right there in England. And this was the topic of a lot of discussions. Some people were identifying themselves as Pan-Africanists. Some people were identifying themselves as Black nationalists. Some people were, called themselves New African. Some people called themselves African internationalists. That was the party. You feel me? And so there was this huge debate and contest for years and years and years about the weaknesses of Pan-Africanism and how anybody can be a Pan-Africanist because the class question was never adequately addressed among Black people, whatever. And just as this conversation around to be a Pan-Africanist, to not be a Pan-Africanist. Are we African or are we African American? Are we New Africans? Are we Jamaicans? Whatever, about the collective identity of people who are the descendants of Africa, right? And for me, even now, I feel like the world, at least in my mind, at least the vision that I have for the world, right? And even it is a proposed vision that a lot of socialists talk about. We want to build a world without borders, blah, 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 right? The destruction, the decay of the former bourgeoisie and all of this stuff. But these labels that we become hogtied to as our identifiers keep us stuck in a particular place that we can't, because would there be a need for feminism in a world where oppression no longer exists? I asked y'all this before, but I'm going to ask it again. When I'm talking about how dangerous self-imposed labels are, and they're dangerous because 99.9% of the labels that we accept and we have and we wear as badges of honor are directly in reaction and in response to our oppression. We identify in a million different ways based on our perceived place in time right now under somebody else's authority, under somebody else's rulership, under somebody else's oppressive system. Every way that we identify that we wear as badges of honor. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor because somebody oppressed me. You feel I survived somebody's oppression. That's what you is, right? I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist because I live in a patriarchal world. So this is my reaction to a patriarchal world. I'm a womanist because I am not only female, but I am a woman of color. And so I am dually oppressed, doubly oppressed. So I have to be something, different than a feminist. I am a revolutionary because I acknowledge that there is a world that must be radically transformed in order for human beings to experience something that resembles happiness. I am an activist. I am 90% of what we accept and take on and hold on to vehemently as labels are reactions to what is. So she said it in one of these books, it makes it difficult to see a future that no longer requires us to be an activist, that no longer requires us to be a revolutionary, that no longer requires us to be a feminist, that no longer requires us to be hogtied to these labels and identifiers that minimize and shrink our vision of what can be. I hope that you are hearing the depth and the seriousness of what I am saying in this moment, because I hear this a lot out here. Everybody out here is in some way or another like politically sharp. You feel me? Everybody well versed in the hype political lingo of Lenin and Marx and all the things. But to create something new is to envision that thing that is new. And to envision that something new, we have to have an imagination that allows us to see, to envision in our consciousness a world without oppression. And what are the peculiarities that we would see in this world where oppression is no more? What would life look like on a daily basis? What would be the lived experience of people who we say live between the poles, right? That live between the quote binaries. You feel me? Live between the binaries of black and white, live between the binaries or the poles of male and female. What would a world look like where they could exist on the terms that they set for themselves, move about the world, and create the future that they want for themselves, completely uninhibited, completely unbound? You see what I'm saying? And so that's why I have never and will never call myself a feminist. It is limiting. While I understand in the context of 1973, when she wrote this book, during the second wave of feminism and the peculiarities of the second wave of feminism happening squarely under a Nixon administration and a Reagan administration and the complications that came from that, and having to be able to say, okay, this is who I am in the world, so recognize or whatever. But now we have too much information. We have too much access, not only to information, but to each other. The world is radically small right now. It opens up a boundless potential of being able to put our heads together, even if I'm in LA and somebody is in New Zealand and we're talking to each other on a Zoom call. Now, the world becomes extremely small and we can put our heads together, acknowledging the current state of things and saying, okay, I want to build institutions of dual and contending power because this is the only way to eradicate the old and it simultaneously generate the new. Let us put our heads together about what our current lived situation is and how can we build its opposition in real time. And to hold on to labels that only exist as a reaction to oppression is limiting. We'll never create anything new if we keep accepting these labels. I'm telling you, I am convinced are fed to us by the state. Now, if you have me tell it, that's what I think. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Do you think people take labels and turn them into identities, which makes it hard for them to let go? That's exactly what I'm talking about. The labels that we accept become our badges of honor. It's who we are in the world. And we can't see anything outside of that. It is the evidence, I think Mary said way back in the beginning of the book, that we don't really believe we can win. So the movement becomes everything. because we really don't think we can win. So we just know we're going to be activists forever. We're going to be revolutionaries forever. This becomes our identity. That, yes, and you said exactly what I was trying to say, but I guess in a more complicated way. That's why it's hard for us to relinquish these labels. I am another kind of person. I question myself because I too have labels. I too have those things that are identifiers for me. And I have sat with myself and asked myself, okay, if I'm serious about the world that I know, I am certain is possible. If I'm serious about this world and I'm serious about participating the way that I can in the creation of this world, right? The world that I see in my mind's eye, we are fully capable of creating, then how willing will I be to relinquish my definers, my labels? The one I was thinking about most deeply is I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine. I'm a doctor. I'm a quote healer. Will there be a need for healers in mass like we see them if the world is made well? You might need one doctor per every 100,000 people, but in the world that we have the ability to create, we will not need a single doctor for every 5 people or every 10 people because everybody's sick all the time. I hope y'all hear me because I ain't, listen, I believe the radical is possible. I believe that the most radical is possible. I believe that. And so for me, I'm like, look, I love being a healer. I love being a doctor. I love helping people make well. But what I would love more is to see people live optimally because it is possible. It is easy and it's possible, and it's our default in this world. Our default is wellness. Our default is healthiness. Our default is wholeness. And so I'm not needed as a doctor anymore. So what's my how I'm gonna earn my living in this world that I want to see made real and that I'm certain can happen? You understand? So that was the long, deep question, like the long, deep introspective I had with myself not too long ago. I was like, I might need to be developing some more skills because I want to see the world made well. I want to see the world made whole, truly, and the wealth, the abundance, the information, the technology, all exist right now for that world to be, for that world to exist. Now, there's some more other questions that go along with that. You feel me? There are some other things that have to happen for that to unfold. You feel me? That's why that ceremony up on the mountain on November 19th. Because I'm not talking about make-believe or, wishing on a star or no shit like that. I recognize that world that exists right now in real time, that world without oppression, that world without despair, that world where happiness is the default, happiness is the norm, that world where sovereignty is a guarantee, that world where individual sovereignty is a guarantee, that world exists right now. We have to remove its impediments. That's what we have to do. We have to remove those things, just like, since we all be talking about it tomorrow, just like the Wizard of Oz. You feel me? And everybody believes that he is the great and almighty, right? Everything that happens in Oz is the wizard's doing. You understand? Everything is this magical, mystical, all-powerful, all-seeing creature for whom no one has laid eyes on his face, the all-powerful Oz. You feel me? And the only thing that stands in the way of this world that I am telling you exists in real time right now, because we have everything that we need to ensure it so, is removing the veil from the Oz. Removing that curtain. She had to pull back. Her dog pulled back, as a matter of fact. While nobody else could see it, the Tin Man, the Lion, the Straw Man, you feel me, the Scarecrow, Dorothy, nobody could see it. But her dog, you understand? He was like, this that bullshit, this suspect. Let me go over here and investigate this suspect. There's probably a metaphor in that. I have to think about that deeper. But Toto was like, this bullshit. This some bullshit. Y'all over here scared and trembling and shit. This some bullshit. Let me go investigate. Let me go peep the terrain. Let me go peep the technique real quick. And then he was exposed in all of his weakness, and all of his fear, and all of the make-believe he created to make himself bigger than he actually was. Everything that he did, everything that he generated was an illusion. Not only that where he came from, he was a nobody. Where he came from, he was a nobody. Where he came from, he was a nobody. But in this place, he can oppress and control, you see, until his ass is exposed. Until his ass is exposed. This is what we have to do. So that's what I'm telling y'all. The world that we want to see made real exists right now. We have to say it exists right now. Right now. But we have to remove its impediments so we have to remove its impediments so that it can completely emerge. That's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. We're creating it in real time. It exists in real time. It's unfolding every day that we wake up in the morning. Yes, it is. As long as there's 3 of us, 7 of us, 9 of us, 11 of us in the world, plotting and scheming, plotting and scheming, plotting and scheming, plotting and scheming. It is unfolding. What we have to do is, while we're plotting and scheming, using our mouth, using our miasm, using our ashe, we also have to be using our, what did I say? Simultaneously using our ashe to create and destroy. To create and destroy at the same time. This bullshit where you just gonna do some abundance rituals and some money manifestation meditations, and you think some shit just about to fall in your lap. Them meditations have to be paired, have to be partnered with. Thank you so much for my abundance that already exists. Thank you so much for my wealth that already exists. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mother. Thank you so much for the foresight of my ancestors to secure my wealth, because they did. With every day that they worked and didn't get paid, they secured your wealth. Thank you so much for the wealth, for the inheritance my ancestors have bestowed on me. And I am so grateful that you are seeing fit to remove every block and impediment to me meeting my wealth. What does that mean? To remove every block. And what are the blocks? Y'all be talking about like uncrossing rituals and removing blocks. But what do you see in your mind's eye is your blocks, or your the crossing, the thing that's standing in the way of your wealth. You always see it as some bullshit. You think it's like because you don't know how to balance your checkbook good, you feel me? Or you spent too much on McDonald's last week. That is not your block, boo. That's not your block. Your block is the church. Your block is the synagogue. Your block is the motherfucking mosque. Your block is the ashram. Your block is your ideas imposed on you by these institutions. Your block is America. Your block is your founding fathers. Your block is the police. What else? Your block, what else? What else? Name it. Name it. These are your blocks. And so while you are doing your abundance rituals and meditations, you better have clearly in your mind's eye who has stole your wealth. Because your wealth exists already. Let me tell you what this means. God damn it, I didn't know I was gonna get on this. But let me tell you what this means, because I gotta go soon. Your wealth already exists. What do I mean? Do I mean in some esoteric way? Y'all out here talking about reparations. Your wealth exists already. Don't nobody have to pay you nothing. You don't have to stage no contest. My lips is ashy. You don't have to stage no contest with nobody to pay us for the crimes done, for the wealth stolen, for the labor stolen. They don't have to pay you. They don't have to pay you nothing. Because to, quote, ask the government to pay you reparations is to yield power to those who have stolen your wealth. Your wealth already exists. The wealth created by your ancestors is unending. Wealth doesn't disappear. It is transformed, but it doesn't disappear. You're already wealthy. You understand? And if our wealth, every ounce of it, was returned today, oppressed people around the world would never have to work again. That's why billionaires exist. If our wealth was returned everywhere on earth, Asia, Africa, Latin America, so-called Latin America, Turtle Island. You understand? Fiji, Alaska, Australia, New Zealand, China, India, Europe. And I say Europe for a reason. Y'all can get your panties in a bunch if you want to. But there was a bunch of goddess worshiping people who had wealth and land that was stolen too by the empire that then turned around and set its sights on us. So if all of our wealth was returned tomorrow, because it still exists today, if all of our wealth was returned tomorrow, would nobody on earth have to work? That's how deep it is. Would nobody else on earth have to work again? I know that's deep for y'all, and I'm probably going to have to discuss it on another day. But I want you to know that's why. That is the premise. That is the basis for why I say that the world that we want to see made real, that we keep, I say the future, but I'm saying we keep saying, we want to see a future made real, blah, 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 blah. But that future is now. The future is now. It exists right now. As long as one of us has a crystal clear image of what the world is. Not can be, is. Then we see something different. We see the process of unfolding it and helping it to emerge differently. We see the process of the removal of the veil that shields it from us differently. We see those instruments of delusion that veil it from us, that veil the certainty of what is right now from us. We can't see it, even though it's real right now. We can't imagine it, even though it's real right now. I'm talking about a world without oppression. It exists right now. Not somewhere, because people say, well, I hope I live long enough to. It exists right now. And if you take into yourself and you take into yourselves that this world that we have been talking about exists right now, then the discussion shifts from I can't wait till, I can't wait till, in a few years, this and that and this and that. It changes that state of understanding. It changes that state of existence from it's somewhere intangible from me. The future is from me. The future is intangible. I hope I'm alive to see it. Freedom in our lifetime and all of that kind of shit that keeps what exists right now from us. It keeps it invisible to us. It keeps it from reality from us. And if we accept that the future is now, that a world without oppression exists right now, now our energy and our thought processes shift from the future that never comes to how do we help unveil it? How do we help unveil this future? That's what the process of emergence is. How do we unveil this future? Let me tell you something. This is the last analogy I'm gonna leave with. Then I really got to walk out this door, right? The cocoon with the chrysalis in it. You understand? The caterpillar that has cocooned himself in anxious anticipation of what he is to become. Even though he is in a cocoon, the process, the intimate, internal, innate wisdom of knowing what is to come, that's certainty. He doesn't have to guess. Every caterpillar born that turns into a cocoon doesn't have to guess about what's on the other side. They don't have to be curious, like, I wonder what I'm gonna be when I break up out this shell. You feel me? They don't have to wonder. The process is certain. It is a guarantee. The process is certain. It's infallible. It is a guarantee. And that guarantee is made in this intimate relationship between the chrysalis and his mother, between the chrysalis and the earth, but between the chrysalis and its surroundings. The process is perfect and it is a guaranteed outcome that is present, not in the future. The outcome is present. The guaranteed, certain, definitive outcome is his present. It's his present. It's not the future. You understand? I hope you understand. I hope you understand. Because the world that is waiting to be seen, exists right now. We are the babies. We the chrysalises. You feel me? We the babies still in utero, Knowing our future is certain and definitive because of divine wisdom inherent in the perfect infallible process. You understand? The process is perfect. And just like the chrysalis, there's a little, just like the baby, we are the babies. You understand? We're the babies. We're in the evolutionary process waiting for our inevitable, guaranteed, fucking perfect emergence. The problem, at least in our understanding of the baby and the chrysalis, is that we cannot yet see what's on the other side. Though we keep pushing, we keep writhing in the uncomfortable, we keep writhing, it's pressure. It's pressure. The snake writhing out of the old skin. You understand? It's painful. It's pressure. But we keep doing it because we innately know that the process is perfect, that the future is certain because it exists right now. Because it exists right now. That's who we is. We the baby who cannot yet see what's on the other side, but we know the future is certain because it exists right now. We are the chrysalis in the cocoon, knowing that the future is certain because it exists right now. Everything that we do right now, everything that we say right now is its guarantee. The guarantee. The energy that we put into it is the guarantee. So it really does require a radical paradigm shift about how we see the world and our participation in it. What we're waiting for, what we're preparing for is our inevitable unveiling. That's what we're waiting for. That's what we're preparing for. That's what the pressure is about. Are you really about that life? That's what the mother keeps asking you. This future that you have been praying for, this future that your ancestors have been praying for, this future that the ancient ancestors have been praying for. Are you really about that life? This is the pressure. Are you really about that life? Or are you going to succumb? Are you going to try to avoid evolution because it's uncomfortable and unfamiliar? Are you really about that life? Are you really conducting and carrying out what your ancestors have called on you to complete in this perfect process? Are you really about that life? Get ready. Are you really about that life? You say so. Get ready. Can you relinquish? Can you leave behind in that cocoon everything that you do not need when you acquire wings on the other side of the veil? You understand? This book, man, is just one of the many very necessary strands in the web that we are generating in real time. In real time. You understand? I didn't mean to go that long into why I don't call myself a feminist. I've never considered myself a feminist, but this is what unfolding looks like. This is what is required of us, is to see, to be able to really see in our consciousness together this world that exists, that is waiting to welcome us on the other side of this veil imposed on us. This veil that has been imposed on us by a wicked wizard. By a wicked wizard with no true power, feigning omnipotence, feigning all-seeing omnipotence, feigning power. That is a disguise. That is to cover its inherent weakness and fallibility. You feel me? We have to be Toto, whipping back the veil to fully expose what has been done to human beings. This is the last thing I'm gonna say, I promise. Okay, so Dr. Khalid Muhammad, who was he was, like a lead guy in the Nation of Islam, and then was kicked out of the Nation of Islam and became the founder of the new Black Panther Party. You feel me? And there is an episode of Donahue that you can go back and see on YouTube with Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And Donahue, being who the fuck he was, an agent of the state, if I can be clear. Donahue, being who he was, would commonly have, quote, controversial Black political figures on his show in an attempt to, quote, outsmart them or outmaneuver them or whatever. and always ended up getting shanked on the TV is what Donahue ended up doing. But he asked this question trying to demean Dr. Muhammad. He said, you know, you delivered this presentation at some school. I forget, it was like a HBCU. He said, you delivered this presentation. And he said, there was a quote that you said in the presentation, something about, you know, so let's go see what the Pope got hidden up under his skirt. Why don't we just lift up his skirt and see what he got hidden up in there? You know, isn't this very childish kind of language? What do we want to lift up the Pope's skirt for or whatever, right? So he was being really condescending when talking to Dr. Muhammad about this quote that he made. And he's so smooth. Y'all got to go see the video. It's one of my absolute favorites. I watched it probably about 12,000 times. He said, oh, Phil, you know what it means. He said, you being a Jew know full well what I am talking about. And he goes to the biblical scripture in the Old Testament. I don't know what it is, but in this Old Testament scripture, it talks about lifting up one's garments to reveal their shame. It is a metaphor. To lift one's garments is to reveal their shame, right? Their crimes, their sins. You feel me? And so he said, so when I'm talking about the Pope and I'm talking about lifting up the dress of the Pope, lifting up the garments of the Pope to reveal his shame, I am talking about the crimes executed by the Roman Catholic Church against Africans, against indigenous people in the Americas, against Asians, against everybody on earth. He said, don't play coy, Phil. You knew exactly what I was talking about when I said that. And he said, and so the reason I'm saying that now is just like the Wizard of Oz and Toto, his innocent self, his unreasoning self. He was just like some shit suspect. Let me go sniff this out. And removed the veil to show Dorothy and her other, because I'm going to get deep with y'all tomorrow about this discussion about Dorothy, but to show her timid self, her seemingly powerless self, that this is not a great wizard, but a con. It's a con. And so she becomes emboldened when she sees, oh, he ain't even got no power. He was just a regular nobody back from where I'm from. You feel me? Same thing. The metaphor of the veil, the metaphor of the chrysalis or the snake shedding its skin, or us popping finally out of the darkness of our mother's womb to be exposed to light for the first time, to be illuminated for the first time in this incarnation, and to take the light of the future that exists right now to show up the shame of these institutions that have thrived off of our suffering. That's what it is. Now I got to go to work. I might come back later. Probably not. I'm not going to come back later because I have to study, because we are going to do a temple service in the morning. That temple service is going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So log on to YouTube, whatever, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am going to do a temple service. Y'all been kicking my ass about talking about this movie Wicked. So that is going to be the topic of temple service in the morning, is Wicked. You feel me? And I'm going to go ahead and warn you, it's probably going to be a multi-series breakdown, because I got like 6 pages of notes right now on this movie. Okay. So tomorrow I will see you. Now I got to go to work. Good night. I pray for your abundance, your wellness, your happiness, your wholeness, all in the name of our extraordinary mother. Mommy and I are one. Good night.